And welcome back to Luminary Leaders Live. My name is 𝗨𝗟𝗄𝗃. I'm your host, and I have another wonderful guest today, and it's going to be an emotional episode today, but I know that you're just going to be so inspired by my guest, and you'll see her next to me right here. Again, 𝗨𝗟𝗄𝗃, your host, and we want to thank Endeavor Mortgage, who is our show sponsor, with Dan Leonard, and they're located in Seal Beach. So a shout out to Endeavor Mortgage. And Laura, I would love to welcome you, Laura Lane, onto Luminary Leaders Live. I want everybody to know that you're a courage coach and you specialize in supporting cancer moms. So I want to welcome you, and I can't wait to have our audience hear your story.
Thank you so much, 𝗨𝗨. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. And if we could start out, Laura, I would really love for you to kind of share, when we first talked and I heard about your story, my heart was just going out to you. But at the same time, I just love what you're doing and helping moms that are experiencing the same thing that you went through. So can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Sure, I'd love to. So, 2011, I want you to imagine February 24th, 2011, we get a call that my daughter needed to go to the doctors. And then from the doctors, he said that she needed to go to the emergency. By 2 in the afternoon, she was having a CAT scan. By 6 o'clock at night, she was having an MRI. And by 9:30 at night, she was having an emergency neurosurgery.
Gosh.
So we were launched literally into the world of childhood cancer. So
Wow.
what they discovered is that she had a mass growing at the back of her brain, a very rare type of diagnosis called pineoblastoma. The chances of getting it is 1 in 7 million.
Oh my goodness.
And so we were just completely launched into the world of childhood cancer. To have a daughter, like that was her first surgery on that day. We were then transferred to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto, where they needed to do a second surgery because it was so hard to access where the tumor was growing. So they needed one of the top neurosurgeons in Canada to do a second surgery so they could do a biopsy and give us a full diagnosis. And then the treatment they offered us was a St. Jude's protocol, which was 30 rounds of high-dose radiation, followed by the suggested recommendation was 4 to 6 months, 4 to 6 rounds of high-dose chemotherapy and stem cell rescue.
My goodness.
So yes, a lot, an awful lot for us to be thrown into. And when that happened, so my initial reaction with that was, okay, I had studied with Bob Proctor. I had become a personal growth and development specialist, teaching Bob Proctor's programs. And I remembered what he had taught me about fear, because of course the first thing I did was I went into complete fear and overwhelm, and I'm like, no, I don't want to be in fear. What do I need to do? And what Bob had taught me is fear comes from a lack of knowledge. So when we're in fear, it's usually because we lack some sort of information.
Right, because you don't know what you don't know, right? Until you learn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did was I'm like, okay, well then I just need to arm myself with the knowledge. We're not alone. We have so many people supporting us. So finding out who's out there asking for support, so I didn't feel alone. And then making sure that I got all the information from the doctors. And I made a decision right at the beginning that I wasn't going to go onto the internet and start reading things because I didn't want to go into more fear.
That makes sense. And probably a wise choice too.
So, and I felt good in that decision, and we just went day by day, but what the doctors are able to provide for us, what do we need to do? And we're taking step after step. Celeste they had to harvest her stem cells, and then she started her radiation treatment, and we were going through all of that process. And when one day I get this nudge, this little inspiration, this whispering that says, "Laura, go and look online." And I'm like, "No, I
Mm.
said I wasn't gonna go online." And
Yeah.
so I had an argument with spirit for quite a bit of time, kept getting these nudges, "Go and look online, go and look on."
Yeah.
"No, I'm not going to." So finally I broke down. I was like, "Okay, fine, I'll go and look online." So I Googled pineoblastoma, and what came up was there was another mom who had had like a 2-year-old boy, and he had had pineoblastoma, and she had created this website just for other parents because there were so few of us. And she
Gosh.
had made a listing of all the other kids that she had found that had the same diagnosis, so here's
Mhm.
this 16-year-old boy, and he was diagnosed in 2000, like in 1985, and then here's a 3-year-old girl diagnosed in 1992, and there's this list, and I find myself scrolling through this list of children, and as I'm going through the list, there's a 12-year-old girl, and she's diagnosed in February 2011. Well, my daughter
Mm.
Celeste is 12 years old, and she was diagnosed in
Mm.
February 2000. I'm like, "Oh my goodness, there's another little girl out there going through this exact same
Same
time,
thing, same
same
age.
age."
Yeah.
And then her contact information for her care pages was on this website. So I reached out to this other family and said, "Hey, my daughter's going through this the same as your daughter." And they're like, "Oh my goodness, they hadn't found anyone else." And they didn't
Mm.
even know that they were listed on this website. So the other little girl, her
Mm.
name is Haley.
Oh.
And Haley's mom is Lori.
Hmm.
I'm Laura, she's Lori.
Yes.
We both have 12-year-old girls going through the same
Oh,
thing. It
yeah.
was just it was just mind-blowing. Like, it
It
just
was
felt like,
meant to be that you
yeah.
came together.
And the other thing is we were
Yeah.
in Toronto, in Ontario, Canada, and they were down in New Jersey
Oh.
going to Philadelphia to the
Mm.
Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, CHOP.
Yeah.
And so the fact that we found each other at all was just a miracle. And what I
Um,
discovered was that, one, Lori and I went from being complete strangers to best friends practically overnight
oh my
because there was
gosh.
nobody else who understood exactly
Right.
the
Because like you said, 1 in 7 million.
so
So
I
the
did
odds are,
yeah,
yeah.
I did the statistics on it, the stats. The
Hmm.
chances of 2 12-year-old girls being diagnosed at the same time was 23.5 billion to 1.
Oh my gosh. That is a
Yeah,
staggering figure.
yeah.
My goodness.
So really felt like we had been brought together on this,
Yeah.
and then what I discovered about this other family is they were doing some of the same things we were doing for Celeste. So for
Mm.
Celeste, we wanted her to stay positive, and we had visualizations for her to focus on, but I wanted her to know that she was loved and supported, and we asked people to pray for her all over the world. And
Mm.
because of what I had been doing, and the work I had done with Bob Proctor, and in the past Jack Canfield, and these amazing people, I had contacts all over the world. So I messaged
Yeah.
everybody I knew and said, "Please, would you pray for Celeste?" And so
Mm.
every time that we would get a note back that someone was praying for us, I would put it on a sticky note, and I put all the sticky notes around her room. So
Oh.
on all of the surfaces, there was these little sticky notes. The nurses came in and were like, "What is this?" And like, "Well, that represents all the people
Hope.
who are
Hope.
praying for her." And
Yeah.
and so it would say, "Well, this is Wendy, and in Brisbane, Australia, and
Mm.
here's Angelica, and she's praying in Sweden,"
Gosh.
and all over the room.
That is so amazing. So
And then
amazing.
And then what we found out was that Haley and her family, they were doing the same thing. They had people praying for her all
Oh.
over the world, and they had a map of the world, and so they had
Oh,
pins for all the
where
places
all
in
the
the world that
comments were
people.
coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So that these little girls knew that they were loved and supported, and people were praying for them, that it wasn't an
Mhm.
abstract thing anymore. They could
Mhm.
visually see how much people were loving and supporting them.
Yeah, and it came to life. I mean, it had a life in terms of, just continually just giving, hope to the families and the encouragement. And, even though the circumstances, changed. And I really, I want to applaud you, Laura, for what you went through, because it's not easy. And I don't know how it would feel. I have two children of my own, or my husband and and I couldn't even imagine, and not that we want to go back there, and because we could only imagine what the feelings were, and just the it was terrifying, I'm sure, just to know what the outcome could be. And fast forward, I know you are doing some extraordinary work and helping moms who have children with cancer. So let's just kind of talk about that, and let's kind of focus on what you're doing. And I know you shared actually a beautiful book that's already available, and we'll talk about that too. So let's kind of go in that direction, and let's
Sure.
just see what you're doing now and how you're helping moms with children with cancer.
So, right from where I just left off about meeting Lori and the girls and people praying for
Yeah.
them all over the world, well, I really, one day just thought these girls are so special. And I got this inspiration that I needed to write a book about them. And so from that point on, I started documenting everything. All the emails that
Mhm.
went back and forth between Lori and I, all the things that we learned that would help other parents. And so I had the book, which was published a few years later, is called Two Mothers, One Prayer: Facing Your Child's Cancer with Hope, Strength, and Courage.
Hmm.
And so it shares Celeste's story, it shares Haley's story, and then the relationship. You get to sort of discover that relationship that built between Lori and I, and
Yeah.
then all the things that we learned that would help other parents going through the same thing.
Gosh.
And when I started off the
Mhm.
story, it was about, like, well, I let them know this is a book about one girl who survived and one girl who didn't, but I didn't tell them who until we got to the end of the book. And
Yeah.
the girl who passed was my daughter Celeste. Haley lived for a few more years, but eventually her cancer took
Hmm.
over as well. And there was so much that we learned going through that process as well. Um, but in now having a book that when Celeste passed, I knew that I needed to finish this book. I had started it, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't finish the book earlier. But there was more that needed to be written. I needed to write that story of Celeste and her passing. And
Yeah.
then once she did, that's what got me out of bed in the mornings. Like, got me out of
Mhm.
bed at all. Like, because
Yeah.
it was such a hard time, this became my motivator. I'm like, "I need
Mhm.
to finish this book for Celeste. I need
Yeah.
to tell the world about my little girl." And so then we were able to publish the book, and then after that, it became, "Okay, well, what else can I do to help other parents?" So
Yeah.
I interviewed a whole bunch of expert and asked them for their best advice, and put
Mhm.
together a virtual summit, which we have now made into a podcast.
Oh, wow.
So the
Yeah.
podcast is called Hope, Strength, and Courage. And
Mhm.
then I also asked a whole bunch of moms, other cancer moms, and said, "What do you what do you wish someone had told you? Like, what do you know now? You wish somebody had told you days, weeks, months earlier. What's your best advice? Like, what would you tell another mom?" And so they came
Yeah.
back with all this incredible advice that I put into an ebook. And then, but
Mm.
as I was sifting through all that advice, I recognized that a number of parents talked about the importance of tracking everything, because there's so much to keep
Mm.
track of. There's
There is,
diagnosis,
yes, I would
there's the
imagine.
treatment plan, there's the medical team, there's medications and prescriptions and um, blood counts, and there's all the things going on at the hospital or with my child. But I still have three kids at home.
Mm.
So who's taking Susie to soccer practice, and who's picking up Johnny from daycare, and what are they eating, and who's bringing in meals, and who's available to help, and what about school stuff, and all of those things. And so I thought about all the things that we needed to keep track of. That, you know, what we need would be a daily planner just for cancer moms.
Hmm. No, and that makes perfect sense, because that way you can kind of look back and just, cherish those moments together too, because, the activities and the things that you wanted to, make sure were included in their daily activities, just to keep going and keep them encouraged, because no parent or child wants to hear, that they have terminal cancer, and it's not an easy club to be a part of. I couldn't imagine. I know my mother passed away of cancer, and once you get it, and it was lung cancer. So once you get into that, that club, so to speak, it's you really have a heart for other people who have had loved ones that have gone through that. And I know you've built quite a community. So let's kind of talk about that community. And then we definitely want to see that book that you just showed me a few minutes ago before we started.
Yeah.
In fact, let's start with that, because I know that was something that you have, and it's brand new, hot off the press.
So we printed our first 100 copies of Stronger, the daily planner for the most amazing moms on the planet. Everything you need to stay sane while caring for a child with cancer. And so I'm going to show you just some few pages. One of the things that I'm just amazed about is how beautiful,
That is beautiful.
their designer just did. We have these quotes. So over on this side here, there we go.
Yeah.
So I have a quote for every month, special quotes. And then when we have our weekly pages, or like the week at a glance, we have made sure to include some of those cancer mom tips at the bottom of each one.
What kind of tips have they come up with? Just things that you can recall that moms have come up with, that are tips that maybe we wouldn't even think about as, just going about our day.
So cancer tip number 21, make a game out of everything you possibly can.
So that keeps the adventure, the excitement.
Cancer mom tip number 22, never ever give up hope. Once you give up hope, there's nothing left. So grab on tight to it now and do not let go. No matter what doctors, nurses, friends, family, etc. tell you, never, ever, ever give up hope.
Gosh. Yeah. Those are just so important. When you think about kids and what they go through, and the parents, like yourself, I really, my heart goes out to you, Laura, for what you went through in your family, and, losing Celeste, and, as far as Haley, several years after. Do you still stay in touch with Lori?
Yes. Yeah. Lori and I are still close. Her oldest daughter, just had a baby, and
oh my goodness.
So we've been able to stay close over the years, which has been really nice. It's a special bond that we created, and
I would imagine.
We've spent time visiting with each other. Haley and Lori were able to come and visit us up in Toronto when the girls were finished their treatment, when they were finally able to go back to school again, and so that was really special. And we've been down there, and they've come up here to be with us, and so it's been
so lifelong friends. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Because and not just because you have, both losing your precious daughters, but I think you've developed this friendship that, it's a solid bond that really can't be broken. Yeah.
It's been very, very special. So
I bet. And and I know you mentioned you have a podcast too. So share with us about your podcast.
So like I was saying before, so I did a virtual summit. I had been taught the importance of virtual summits and reaching families. And so I interviewed a whole bunch of experts, asking them. It was the Hope and Happiness for Cancer Kids virtual summit. And so I asked a whole bunch of experts, Dr. 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗍𝗍, Dr. Jeff McCowage out of Australia, 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗍𝗍𝗍, and her book, Happy for No Reason, a number of authors and psychologists, and Dr. Dr. Sue Morter and just some amazing people. So
Mhm.
I interviewed them for the summit. And then afterwards, a couple years later, I'm like, you know what? We can still reuse this content. It's still valuable content. And so then we re-released all of them as podcast episodes.
Oh my goodness. So that was creative the way that you did that then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
And
some of the interviews I cut up into 1, 2, or 3 pieces
mhm.
and then just rolled them out. We have 26 weeks of episodes.
26.
So
Gosh. Now, are you continuing the podcast on, or is it just the episodes that you have already?
just the episodes at the moment. We'll see where it goes in the future, but right now we
Yeah.
want to just keep promoting those 26 episodes. The first 24 have actually gone live. 25 and 26 will be going live over the next couple of weeks, and then we'll re-release
Mm.
them again in January. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. And how do moms get in touch with you, Laura, when, if they have the just the tragic news of, their child having cancer, what is the best way that they can reach out to you?
If they reach out through my website, which is nice and easy, 𝗚𝗿𝗰𝗲.ca, because I'm in Canada. If they
Mhm.
reach out on there, there's a button to schedule a call with me. They can send me an email or fill out the form on the website. But the easiest way is just schedule time to talk. We can have a
Yeah.
little bit of a call and I can see where they're at and what resources that might be useful to them.
It's really wonderful that, and I look at you and I think, my goodness, you lost your daughter. And here you are advocating for other mothers and helping them and giving them hope and, just really being there for them, because it's something that I think a lot of moms feel that they have to do alone with their own child, and sometimes they're married and, the spouse doesn't even really get involved. It's just one parent or both parents who are coping with, with a diagnosis. So for what you're doing, I really publicly want to say thank you, because I think, there are mothers out there that need to hear you and, should be reaching out to you, because you have so much, love to give and caring and, just something that is not out there the way that you're doing it.
Thank you.
Really. Yeah. Yeah. And, with kind of in closing, I know we just have a minute or two left for the broadcast. What do you think, Laura, just to share with the audience, if there was something that you wanted to just share with people, what would that be?
I think the most important thing that I learned was the importance of asking for help.
Yes.
And the flip side of that, because sometimes it's really hard to ask for help, is
Yeah.
I want to tell you that people are amazing. Absolutely amazing, that if you will ask for
Mm.
help, people will step up and do incredible things. People want to help, but they don't know how or what to do. If you just step up and say, "This is what I need," and it
Yeah.
can be little things. There will be big things that people will step up and do. We saw people do amazing things for my little girl, but sometimes
Mm.
it was just having someone show up with food for me at the hospital. I had a
Oh my
friend who
goodness.
just said, "Here, give me your laundry,"
Oh,
and took my clothes
oh,
and came back with them
wow.
fully cleaned and folded.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
And those are things that are, even though it's important that it gets done, that's not the most important thing at that moment, because you wanted to spend as much time as you possibly could with your daughter, and thank goodness that you had those people to do that for you,
yeah.
but that's great advice, Laura. And thank you for sharing that, because our audience, I know that they would love to hear this, because sometimes I think we are afraid to ask, and people just, they don't want to burden other people. And sometimes you just need to, especially with dealing with, with a diagnosis like you did with your daughter.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my experience is people are amazing. They will
Yeah.
help. They want to help. Just give them an opportunity. Let go of some of that weight so that you can be completely present on what you need to take care of and
Yes.
let others take care of all of the little stuff. The people will step up and do
Yeah.
an incredible job. And it doesn't have to be perfect either.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And let go of some of those expectations and just do what you need to do. Be there for those people in your life who need you the most. And
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, and the information that you shared today was just so heartwarming and informative, you know, and it's not an easy subject to talk about. And, you know, I know that you're out there advocating and you're reliving this story over and over again. So, you know, kudos to you for continuing your work and, you know, creating just a safe place for women and probably some men that have reached out to you too, I would imagine, you know, the spouses, the, you know, single dads or
mhm.
whatnot. But yeah, I think it's extraordinary what you're doing. And Laura, how can people get the book? Both books. So the first book that you published.
Yes, Two Mothers, One Prayer.
Mm-hmm.
So they can go to my website. They can go to twomothersOnePrayer.com, which will take them right to the right page on my website so that they can learn more about it and they can order straight from Amazon. It is available at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, here in Canada, at Chapters online. It's available that way. They can just click on the website and it will take them directly to the Amazon for their country. And then the other one for Stronger. So this is just
And
starting out.
show
We
us
are,
one more time that
yeah.
cover.
So,
There we go. Stronger.
yes.
Yeah. And
So
you
for
had Ronald McDonald endorse that too, right?
So we have partnered with Ronald McDonald House in South Central Ontario to begin with, and we're hoping to roll that out and be able to go to connect with more and more Ronald McDonald houses so that we can get planners delivered. So if you want a copy, just reach out through my website. We are building a web page specifically for the planner right now, so that's in the works. But in the meantime, just go to my website, contact me, um, and we can arrange to get one to you. So we're working
That's
with
fantastic.
corporate sponsors to sponsor the books so that we can give them to moms in the hospitals,
Oh,
either through Ronald McDonald House or through the parent liaisons in the hospitals.
yeah. But what a great gift, you know, for a mom to receive a book that says stronger, you know, designed by you and your team and just, you know, getting in the hands of moms that are dealing with children with cancer. So, Laura, this has been wonderful. You are such a gift and you have a servant's heart. And I appreciate you being on the show today. This is a different topic than we've ever had before. And, you know, I couldn't imagine having anybody else do it but you.
Thank you
And
so
thank you for,
much.
yes, thank you for being so transparent and really giving such vital advice for moms who, you know, who have to cope with this. And it's you know it's something that I think it'll continue to happen. But the good thing is advancement. You know, as medical, you know, just miracles come up in the world. You know, as we progress in life, hopefully they'll someday have a cure. You know, that's always our hope. But until then, you know, just keep up the great work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Shelley. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Laura. And it's such a pleasure to meet you too. And we want to thank our audience for being with us today on Luminary Leaders Live. It was a very tender interview with Laura Lane, and she's out of Canada. So we want to, give her a shout out. She's out there in Canada. It's ahead of 3 hours of California. So I know it's a little bit later for her, but we definitely appreciate you being here, Laura. And to our audience, please subscribe. We were streaming live today on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And this episode will also be available on all of your favorite podcast apps. So thanks again for joining us and tuning in. And until next time, thank you.